Unit 2. Skills Test. Listening. You will hear 5 short extracts in which people are talking about learning and using English. For questions 1 to 5, choose from the list A to H the reason each speaker gives for starting to learn English. For questions 6 to 10, choose from the list A to H how each speaker uses English nowadays. Speaker 1.
It's funny, I was never any good at English as a kid. I always used to mess up my grammar tests, and that's all we ever seemed to study. Grammar, grammar, grammar. It wasn't really a language, more like a code. I never actually had much insight into why we were studying it, and we were never asked if we wanted to. It was just the thing we all had to study. Working as a roadie now, it's totally different. I travel with bands around the world, setting up and playing their instruments for them before each concert. I also do a fair amount of organizing. English is the one language you absolutely need as you travel from country to country.
Speaker 2.
Working in a hospital in the US, I use English all the time to communicate with my patients. Of course, living in the US, the majority of people I meet are American. But we do also get quite a few people who have recently moved to the country and settled in the local community, whose language I don't speak. So, unsurprisingly, English is our best way of communicating with them. I never really had a lot of formal lessons in English as a kid. Growing up near the US border in Mexico, there were lots of programs and dramas and films from the States in English that we could see, and I just picked it up from there.
Speaker 3.
In Greece, where I grew up, there's a lot of pressure from everyone to learn English to a very high standard from a very young age. It wasn't exactly a passion of mine, personally, more of a part of life. Now that I work in the airport, I occasionally have to work on the security desk, checking passports. We have a lot of tourists, and inevitably, if there are problems, the one language that everyone knows a bit of is English. So I use it to get over those technical language problems.
Speaker 4.
Working in my industry, writing all the code for all of the online gaming video games that you see, I use English a lot. The job's not as glamorous as it may sound. I mean, I can spend a whole month, just working out how to animate someone's arm. Anyway, English is important as the programmers are spread around the world, and the one language we all use in our weekly meetings is English. It's funny to think that a language I learned on family holidays abroad, by hanging around with lots of other kids from other countries in the swimming pool and on the beach, has become such an important part of my job.
Speaker 5.
Growing up, I was fascinated by cars. We didn't have a car ourselves, but I used to watch lots of the big-name car programs made in the UK and US that were available to see on the internet. I moved to Greece a few years ago, and my job involves interacting with lots of tourists from my native country, Germany. Whilst a lot of younger tourists speak some English, very few speak Greek. So whenever they require information or there's a problem, for example, a tourist loses his passport, I'm needed to explain in English, Greek or German what's happened and help to solve the problem.